From Depravity to Redemption by Charles Eisenstein. The word power can mean many things. Moral power, spiritual power, the power to heal, the power of love. Here I will speak of another kind, the kind we use to refer to presidents and billionaires and the people in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book. It is the power to subject others to your will, to direct their actions and to rise above the rules that others must obey. This sort of power is naturally attracted to depravity. Some who pursue domination will naturally take it to its extreme. Even if one doesn't pursue power, but is born or brought into it, depravity exerts an insidious pull. It may start with a subtle sense of one's own superiority, an aloofness, a patronizing attitude towards inferiors, a tendency to associate with other powerful people as peers, while subtly dehumanizing the rest. From there, under the right circumstances, with nothing to limit its drift, it may progress towards its fulfillment. The most heinous acts of complete domination of one human being over another. The dehumanization that is so routine in modern society, that turns us into consumers, functionaries, market opportunities, profit centers, voters, sex objects, characters in degrading political narratives, occupants of racial, gender, or ethnic stereotypes, and so on, seeks somewhere to take on its most extreme forms. Any society that commodifies nature and normalizes dehumanized relationships will necessarily harbor in its darkest recesses, in its prisons and concentration camps and black sites, behind the closed doors of its normal-seeming houses, in the recesses of its family secrets, and in the fortified compounds of its elites, the most grotesque violations of human dignity. It is an organic necessity. Abnormalized degradation complements and completes the normalized. It is impossible for a world that has one not to also have the other. The Epstein files are a ringing indictment of our society. But no such indictment is necessary for those of us who have studied the normalized exploitation and degradation of human beings and other than human beings on Earth. We never believed the system was sound. We saw the sweatshops, the toxic waste dumps, the slums, the landless peasants, the refugee camps, the child labor, the neoliberal extraction, and the wars, prisons, death squads, and torture regimes needed to maintain it. We saw the conversion of life, earth, beauty, community, and imagination to money. We didn't need the Epstein files or notions of satanic cabals to reject it. But for most people, these costs to humans and nature were relatively invisible, hidden behind global supply chains and ideologies of progress, of development, of the ascent of humanity. The Epstein files pierce that obscuring haze. They show us the true nature of power in its distilled form. The files arouse a feeling of confirmation, of vindication, that does not depend on the factual truth of the specific claims surrounding them. The smaller truth is, aha, I knew it, inhuman elites are running the world. The larger truth is, something inhuman is running the world. The second truth contains the first, neither denying nor depending on it. If the elite predators are byproducts of something greater, if they are its functionaries, if they are among its symptoms, then the task before us is much larger than merely to send them to the guillotine. If we are serious about ending the age-old civilizational reign of terror, we must resist the familiar reflex, the familiar problem-solving template of find someone to kill. We have been well versed in that template. What Hollywood action movie doesn't hinge on defeating the villain who is the ultimate cause of the problem? Those films program our understanding of what action is, what the cause of suffering is, and how to erase it. Some of my critics think I must not be serious about ending the horror because they think I want to, quote unquote, let the perpetrators off the hook. It is the reverse. It is because I am absolutely serious that I want to find the real cause and not the easy answer. If a spasm of bloodletting would forever end the cycles of exploitation and horror, I would say yes, let's do it. But if it would only give the appearance of a solution while distracting us from, and thereby perpetuating, the underlying causes, then those of us who care must look deeper. We must ask, why are the elite so naturally drawn to depravity? What is in the job description of power that includes depravity? What in our deep unconscious narratives, myths, and collective psychology generates that job description in the first place? Please, I am not advocating that we sit back and philosophize while giving predators a free pass. Those who have violated trust must be removed from power. Is that the final solution, though? A friend of mine was a South African Labour activist, a revolutionary radical in the 70s and 80s who ended up serving in Nelson Mandela's cabinet. After decades on the outside, he and his comrades were now in positions of power. The good guys won. The age of corruption was over because the old elites, crooked and cruel, had now been replaced by an incorruptible revolutionary cadre with the fiercest ethics. Well, you know what happened. It didn't take long for the new elite to start behaving just like the old. The skin colour was different, but the dynamics of power remained the same. Mandela himself was exceptional, but he could do little to stem the tide even when he was still in office, much less posthumously. My friend had the choice of whether to join the corruption, one compromise at a time, or to retire from power entirely. He chose the latter course. He literally could not remain in office and remain uncorrupted, because that was simply the way things were done. I'm not saying that the South African government is full of paedophiles and torturers. Not everyone in the elite, probably only a small minority, takes power to its most extreme expression.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
The point is that when the roles are available, someone will step in to fill them. And these roles are systematically produced. They self-replicate. I just spoke yesterday with a survivor of satanic ritual abuse who was trafficked by her family of origin throughout her childhood. She goes by the name of Shoshana. She has been on a long healing journey. Before she began to heal, she had no memories of any kind from before age 12. Now she has full access to her childhood. I have her permission to share whatever might be useful. Over years of abuse, Shoshana witnessed the process by which her older brothers were broken and trained to abuse and traffic her, their sister. They did not start out evil. They started out as sweet, innocent babies. The abuse their father inflicted shattered them. They became monsters. And what of the father? What happened to him to turn him from a sweet, innocent baby to someone who would rape and traffic his own daughter? Maybe the whole generational pattern was consciously conceived by some evil mind long ago. Who knows? But no evil mind or deliberate plan is needed to perpetuate it. It is like a malware program that has commandeered the entire system to run itself endlessly, autonomously, long forgetting its author. Generational patterning, the cycle of trauma, is only one means of depravity's perpetuation. The essays that follow in this series explore primal forces of human social psychology, archetypal dramas, ritual magic, and morphic fields that have aggregated over tens of thousands of years. If we understand them, however dark they may be, we will have hope. We will have agency. We will know how to contribute to a world where such things never happen again.
Make it so.
Many of us feel despair confronting material such as the Epstein files. The despair has two sources. First is the apparent power of the perpetrators, their money and political position, their influence over the media, law, government, religion, technology, and so forth, enough to crush all resistance. The second is deeper. It is the despair that cries out in anguish, How could human beings do this to one another? Recognizing that I too am human. It is not a force external to humanity that is committing these horrors, even if we cast the perpetrator into a separate category of being. Still, the despair remains that we face something that, because it is part of us, is inescapable. The despair draws on false premises about how creation works and what a human being is. Ironically, these are also the premises of the very thing we despair of ever changing. First, power is not what we have been taught. The world is subject to causal influences far transcending the instruments of force that the elites wield. We can align with a larger intelligence. Shoshana calls it spirit, that guides us towards extraordinary, creative and transformative power. Secondly, human nature is not fixed. What we call human nature has developed to host the dramas necessary for its evolution. When someone like Shoshana heals, she does a great service to humanity, not just to herself. She removes a filament of human nature from the weave and replaces it with a different kind. Shoshana has no desire to see the perpetrators of the Epstein files swing from the gallows.
Your thoughts? What?
Our call ended with a prayer. May your healing ripple back through time to heal your ancestors. May it ripple forward to heal your descendants. May it emanate outward to heal the world. Hallelujah. 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 Whether or not your theory of change can account for it, you probably have had the experience of feeling gratitude, not just admiration or respect, but gratitude for another person's healing. That feeling comes from a deep wisdom. It recognizes that soul's generosity in taking on such horror so that it might be removed from circulation forever. This is another kind of power. As we grapple with power in the normal sense, let us also stay tethered to this kind. It is not a diversion. It is not a bypass. It will make us brave and unblinking as we face the worst of what human beings have done, and it will show us how to respond.
Yes! Yes!
Make it so.
The fact that Shoshana has no desire for revenge against the people who raped and trafficked her throughout her childhood demonstrates a very high level of consciousness.
You don't say.
I would call it Christ consciousness.
That's the way you want to put it.
Well, I don't have some way to put it. That's the way it is.
Because the heart of Christ consciousness is forgiveness. And forgiveness is it's not really a moral thing. Forgiveness happens when you reach a level of consciousness where you understand that we are all one. That what you do to another, you do to yourself. What you fail to do for another, you fail to do for yourself, because we are all one.
We have been brought up to experience ourselves as isolated centers of awareness and action, placed in a world that is not us, that is foreign, alien, other, which we confront. Whereas, in fact, the way an ecologist describes human behavior is as an action. What you do is what the whole universe is doing at the place you call here and now. You are something the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing. This is not what you might call a fatalistic or deterministic idea. You see, you might be a fatalist if you think that you are a sort of puppet which life pushes around. You are separate from life, but life dominates you. That's fatalism. The real you is not a puppet which life pushes around. The real deep down you is the whole universe. And it's doing your living organism and all its behavior. It's expressing it as a singer sings a song. We've been hoodwinked into the feeling that we exist only inside our skins. That is a hallucination. We need to experience ourselves in such a way that we could say that our real body is not just what's inside the skin, but our whole total external environment.
I told you so.
That is a very high level of consciousness. She is an exemplar of what the human race needs to do, because as long as we react to being hurt by wanting to hurt back, we are stuck in duality, fear, and exactly the level of consciousness that creates the people behind the Epstein files. Might is right. That's the consciousness that creates the ruling elite paedophile cult. I have the power, so I will use it in extreme depraved ways. It's only through non-dual Christ consciousness that we can, through the mirror principle.
So I'm going to be blunt. You've been lied to about how life and reality works. You were taught to fight the world, to hustle and grind, and to try and fix everything that was around you in order to succeed. But what if the life you are living right now, the reality that you see here, isn't life at all? In fact, it is merely a reflection. Not a random set of circumstances, not a punishment, not luck, but a mirror. A reflection. You see, everything you're experiencing, your relationships, your bank account, your struggles, your successes, is showing you you. The crazy part? The people in power, the so-called elites, they were taught these things at a very young age. When they were children. They were shown this through example even when they were babies, and then learned it more systematically as they got older. They were taught how to work with this mirror, not fight it. Most people spend their lives trying to fix the reflection, not realizing that it's their internal state, their inner world, their beliefs, their frequency, and their perception that's shaping what they see. And so they hustle, they grind, they force against life, all while trying to change a world that is simply reflecting back to them who they are being. This is not mere theory. This is a practical principle of the universe that provides real change in your life if you follow these teachings. A new future is always available. So it doesn't matter where you're starting when you go to apply this. The mirror principle, when applied consciously, will absolutely transform your life no matter where you are now. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what the mirror principle is, why it's one of the most powerful universal laws you've never been taught, and how to start using it consciously to create transformation from the inside out. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So let's dive in. Now, the mirror principle is one of the most influential universal principles that's operating in your life. And if we were to say it very simply in a nutshell, it would be that the outer world follows the inner world. That is something I would definitely write down or keep in mind. Now, we're going to explain this even further. What do I mean when I say the outer world? And what do I mean when I say the inner world? So the outer world is, as you expect, it is your physical existence. It is the reflection we were talking about in the intro. All of these physical things that you perceive with your five senses that create this physical experience for you. So there is a part of you that is absolutely operating from a physical perspective. So when you think outer world, it's the physical world and your physical existence, everything contained within that. The inner world, however, is basically everything else and is made up of different parts. You see, the physical is one part of yourself, and it's the part a lot of people get stuck at because they believe you're just physical or we are just physical. But there's also the inner world part of of yourself, which is made up of what we can call the mental and the spiritual part of yourself. Now, the mental is exactly as you would imagine. It is your imaginings. It is your thoughts. It is your visualizations. Anything kind of in that realm, it falls into the mental part of yourself. You have that part of yourself. It's not physical. You're having thoughts. You're able to daydream and visualize and imagine and these kinds of things. So that's one part of yourself as well that has to do with the inner world. It's not out there in the physical, at least not yet. It leads to what comes out in the physical, but for the most part, it's in that inner space. And the other part is the spiritual. And this part you can think of as your connection to everything, to your connection to something larger and more powerful, your connection to the all, infinite intelligence, God, source, whatever you want to call it. It's like your direct line to that. And you can also think of this as your emotional self. So when we say emotion, we mean energy in motion, meaning what you're feeling is activating this plane of your existence. So those emotions, those feelings, etc., are in that inner world space as well. You don't see them out here, but you feel them within. They are an inner world game. So you have the physical world, which is outer, and then the inner world, which is mental and spiritual. Now, why is it that the outer world follows the inner world, meaning the outer world comes from and is produced, is birthed from the inner world? Why is it that these two inner planes of existence, and again, this is a general kind of guide, these three parts, it's more nuanced than that, but this gives us something to work with, a framework that makes it a lot easier to think about. So why is it that the physical, the outer world, follows these two inner ones that we're calling the mental and spiritual? Well, one thing that really helps with this understanding is to recognize what our physical world is really made up of. And so all of us were taught that atoms are the building blocks of the physical world. You know, most of us learned that in school or from whoever else. But would it surprise you to learn that an atom, if you were to look at it deeply, is actually less physical, much less physical than you've been led to believe, because this is what's making up everything you see around here and in the room you're in right now, or, you know, the phone or computer you're watching this. It's made up and consists of atoms. That's what it's made up of to build whatever the physical thing is. But what if I was to tell you, and this is scientifically confirmed, that the atom itself is made up of 99.999999% empty space or energy, and 0.00001% physical matter reality. What this means is the very thing that is the building block, the foundation of what we call the physical, is in and of itself non-physical. There's even a famous scientist, I'll put the quote up on the screen, that basically says everything that is physical in our lives is made up of things that cannot be regarded as physical. I'm forgetting if it's Heisenberg or Niels Bohr or someone similar, but I'll put up the quote and the actual scientist it comes from. And this is stuff that also people like Werner Heisenberg would say, Max Planck, Nikola Tesla we know as well, that ultimately there really isn't a physical, just something that appears physical, made of things that can't actually be regarded as physical. I believe it was Max Planck who said that everything is fundamentally consciousness and that physical matter is derivative of consciousness, meaning it comes from consciousness. And that's the same thing when we're talking about empty space and energy. So why does the outer world follow the inner? Because the inner world is what's connected to that 99.9+%. That is the empty space and energy. That is what creates the physical, the outpicturing, the experience, the reflection. We'll go over a little bit more in a second how this works, but keep in mind, the outer world, your physical world, follows the inner. And that the atom, or the thing that is the building block of the things we call physical, is made up of 99.9+% empty space and energy. And a quote I always love that just kind of gives a vivid picture of this is, if you were to remove all of the empty space and energy from everyone on the planet, so every person, that's like 8 billion people, whatever the number is, and you removed all of the empty space and energy and just had that physical matter left, you would only have enough physical stuff to fit within a tiny sugar cube. That is how physical we actually are. Basically not at all.
It's only through non-dual Christ consciousness that we can, through the mirror principle, create a world where that does not happen. And like Charles Eisenstein, I'm very serious about creating a world where this doesn't happen. Most people aren't. Most people hate it and they want to punish the people who did it. They don't want to think about the fact that this has been going on for thousands of years all over the world, and it's a part of human consciousness. I do, because I know that is the only way to change it. And if you understand this, if you understand that The world is a mirror and it reflects human consciousness. And if we don't want rapists, child sacrificing baby killers running our society, we have to evolve and transform our consciousness as a species. And we can only do that one person at a time. So I am inviting you as an individual listening to this message, if you get this, if you get that this is the only way, join the Way of Mastery Mastermind and become someone that truly heals their trauma, heals their pain, and therefore does not seek revenge, seeks healing for the little babies that were turned into monsters, and healing for the children who are to come, who are going to be abused, and seeks healing for the whole entire world. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.